What's up, Internet? This is Traxus Interactive. I am the programmer behind the Traktor template for Lemur. I wanted to throw out this hopefully quick video to elaborate on some of the enhancements and bug fixes that have resulted from the last couple of beta releases. This is largely targeted at anyone who will be or has received a pre-release, but it'll probably serve as a decent instructional video, even though we won't be covering a majority of the template's features. We will still have a lot of, helper bits in there. So, first and foremost, apologies for the delay. It's been a while since I got any news out on this. Lemur programming is by no means my real job, nor do I intend to make it such. So it's been a matter of finding the time to put these assets together and write the code and so forth. But that said, I very much hope to have this be the final pre-release before taking it public, and I figured it would be easiest to show the new features on camera. I'm leaning towards some kind of crowdfunding solution whereby the code, the template as a whole would go open source. Right now I distribute obfuscated code, which you can't really edit without banging your head against the wall. But yeah, I'd like to make it open after we reach, a reasonable funding limit. And, just barring any commercial redistribution, do what you want with it. I'll be on vacation for the next week or so following putting this video out. But I hope to have this live and online for public release in early September. So with that all out of the way, let's move on to the template. The first thing you may notice, it's kind of small, I know. I did the best I could with the camera setup here. Is that the setup in the config has been fleshed out a little bit. You'll notice the display tab is still there. This is where you select, what pages you want to have accessible on Lemur. So if you don't want to run Deck C and Deck D on Lemur for whatever reason, you can disable them here. One reason you wouldn't want to run it here is if you had a second iPad and you wanted to run those two on the other iPad. Alternate, you might just want two decks. So, the option to do, you can break it out any which way you want. You could have 10 iPads if your bandwidth would support it. That would be pretty awesome. Send me a video if you can do that. Anyway, so the other pages you might notice are we can now choose a deck type right from the get-go. So they all default to track deck, but we can do remix deck and live input. I'm not going to get too much into these pages, but just a brief overview. So the next page is a startup guide. We'll actually go through that when I finish these other two. That's the one we're going to cover the most. We can also select our EFX favorites. So you can choose which ones you use the most frequently here. And it's kind of a pain right now, but once you've done it, you can save them, and you can highlight them later when you want to recall them quickly using the template. And the last page is the modifier safe lock. So there's a lot of features that are liable to get bumped and cause a train wreck, so you have to hold like a shift button before activating that, but some people find that cumbersome, so any of those can be disabled here. And most of these will be covered more later on as I navigate through the various pages, but I wanted to cover them now. But however, we will go through the startup guide. That one makes the most sense. So naturally, you'll want to set up the Lemur Daemon and Loop MIDI, or whatever, I forget the name of the Mac OS X version. Lion already has a decent tutorial on this, so I won't go too far into it. Just be sure you have your input and output configured on MIDI target 0 and your keyboard and mouse input set to listen on KB mouse 0. Hopefully that's going to come out, legible when you go full screen, but forgive me if it isn't. Next, if you haven't already, you'll want to open up the Lemur app and load in the template. Naturally, we've already done that. There are also plenty of tutorials on that. That shouldn't cause too many hang-ups. So get that together, and once everything pertaining to Lemur is running, you'll want to open Traktor and load the included TSI file. And I've already got it installed naturally because I've been working so much, but I'll just go through it anyway. So we're going to go import. You'll navigate to the location. I did that kind of quick, sorry, but it's pretty straightforward. You'll get popped up with this dialog. You'll want to make sure to click MIDI clock settings. You want to import those as well. We'll hit OK, and we're in. And at this point, you may also notice the MIDI clock monitor on the bottom half of the template. This will ensure that Lemur is receiving MIDI clock from Traktor. The prior beta failed to do this, which resulted in like the EFX auto fades and the sequencers not working. So sorry about that, guys. So this will now prevent that. And since these are rather critical features, the template will not initialize until it's receiving MIDI clock. So you'll see we're not receiving here, and if we try to hit OK, it's going to null out on us. And so there's a couple things. We're actually not receiving right now just because, for example's sake, I disabled it up here, but you'll see now that I clicked play up there, we are receiving MIDI clock. And if that doesn't do the trick for you, we might need to go into more settings and enable slave clocks to MIDI, which is, sorry, I'll go a bit slower for you, this bottom one right here. So after ensuring you're getting MIDI clock from Traktor, you'll want to choose your operating system. This is important because the keyboard for the file navigation alters slightly just based on some Lemur quirks between Mac and Windows. So select that. And now, as I mentioned earlier, you can dig through here and choose your fine settings. And if you've done a lot of, tweaking, you might want to save these settings. You can do that simply by going up here. You can edit. Oops, no, you don't want to edit. Just do project and then save as up here, and we'll give it a new name. So. Let's call that demo. Sure. And now you've got all of your effects, favorites, and your layout and everything. That's all going to be saved. And so next time you load up this instance that you saved, you'll be ready to go. So at this point, we're ready to hit OK and initialize the template. And if you watch closely, you might see some settings in Traktor change. That's normal. And it's just to synchronize what Lemur expects Traktor to be set as. So one of the things that might change is the loop length. So if we hit OK, this will probably jump to 4. No, maybe not. Oh, 16 is the default. Okay, yep. So now that we're live, the first thing we'll probably want to do is load a track into the deck. So let's jump over to the file navigation page and go over some of the new features that have been added while we're at it. So very quickly, you'll see that you can now change a deck to any type, be it a track deck, remix deck, or live input. Previously, we only had track deck and remix deck. Not a huge, game changer, but some people had requested it. More importantly, you can now hold the file up or down to scroll, or just do individual taps. And of course, you can still navigate. You can refine your search. You have to be able to spell. Minor inconvenience, I know. So there we go. There's the track I want. We can, of course, load it into any deck. We'll load it into deck A. And in the interest of time, we're also going to change some of the other decks around. So we'll make deck B a remix deck. We'll make deck C a live input. We'll leave deck D as a track deck, and we're going to load another track in there so we can play with the remix sequencer a little later. Cool, good to go. So let's jump to deck A and explore some of the new features on the track deck. Okay, so our track is loaded up, and one of the issues a lot of people brought up was it seemed that many of the features were not responding, most notably the play button, but also the pitch reset, and a few others. And believe it or not, this was actually by design. All these buttons are protected by the modifier or safety button. Being the touch screens, as I mentioned earlier, are more sensitive than tactile controllers, this is a safety mechanism that was added so that we don't train wreck. And again, as I mentioned in the setup page, you can disable these if you find them cumbersome. But if you don't, it also became apparent that this wasn't a very clear setup for a lot of people, and was rather annoying. So the first thing that we changed was that holding the modifier will highlight the features that you can use once holding it. So you'll see the play button, the sync and master, the pitch reset, all become, the color of the deck to signify that you can use them. And this user interface pattern persists throughout a lot of modules in the template. So if we want to delete a cue point, we can't do that until we have held the modify and armed it. Forgive me, I'm digging through my notes here. So yeah, you'll also see that on the beat jump. If we want to, let's fire it. Let's cue point 1. Now if we want to jump 32 beats, we'll set that. But we'll see that it's not going to let us do that until we hold the modifier. And of course, tell it beat jump instead of loop. There we go. And so the other side of, the modifier safety buttons highlighting their children, if you hit one of their children without holding the safety button, it'll blink it red, so you know what you have to hold. So that one, we've got to hold the modify there. Delete, we've got to hold that. Play, we've got to hold that. So with all that in mind, we can hold the modifier and press play, and the track will start playing. So now is a good time to start checking out the fixes in the remix deck. There are quite a lot of features here, and I don't have enough time to go through all of them. I will go through what I've addressed in this latest update. Here, let me kick down that track a little bit. Sorry, John.
What is it that brings you here?
So one of the more important fixes that I made was that the visual feedback of the source selection is a little more apparent now. And by source, I mean the remix deck can take samples from any other deck.
What do you think about it?
Assuming it's the right type of deck. So it can't take a sample of itself. It shouldn't be able to take a sample of live input. It can take a sample from another track deck, so A or D.
What do you want to take tonight? And
it's not perfect. Deck C should not be available, but Deck B is definitely not available right now. And we will select Deck D as the target. And I'll continue to work on that, so bear with me. The other major change I made was in regards to the slice feature. And if you're unfamiliar, the slice button will attempt to grab a consecutive 1-beat, 16 consecutive 1-beat samples from the target deck into a remix slot, which is one of the columns. It's similar to Ableton's Live's Slice to MIDI feature with the one of the drum machine modules, I forget the name. So long story short, this is a macro I wrote in Lemur, not a feature within Traktor, so there's a lot of conditions that have to be met for it to behave properly. The most common being the target track cannot be playing. There's a bunch of others, but if there's something preventing you from doing a slice, it should alert you. So here, let's even see if we can get it to yell at us for experiment's sake.
I heard about this one party.
So we've got deck D as the target. We're gonna do slice. So we hold the modifier or the shift in this case. And if you disable this modifier, it'll still function as a shift on the remix deck because there's so many features we need to give access to, but sometimes we need to rearrange the layout. So if we hold shift and then the slice appears, we hit slice. Now we can choose which slot we want to go to. And it's going to say cannot slice, track deck must not be playing. So let's go back, turn it off. I know, a lot of fun. Watch me make my program not work. So just to show you how it works when it should be working, let's load up. We want to pull 16 samples starting from here. So let's go back. We've stopped everything. Let's try it again. Now you see it jump through, populate all these. We're gonna want to stop. When you take a sample in Traktor, for some reason it wants to start the remix deck. I'm working on that, but anyway. So we should have the remix deck sequence are working. It's not going to sound very good because it's off sync, but. And I'll go more into this later, but. And there's another video as well that explains better how this all works. And I'll probably make another one on top of that. But needless to say, given the MIDI clock fixes, this is also behaving well. So I don't want to spend too much time on the remix deck. Just wanted to, show those quick fixes. So yeah, if the sequencer isn't actually syncing to the clock, let me know. I'm gonna keep it ear to the ground, but it should be working. So next up, we'll take a look at one of the effects pages, and nothing terribly new here, except you may recall that you can select your favorite effects. Hang on, I'm gonna turn this up a little bit for you. So we selected some favorite effects earlier. Now we can recall them by holding favorites. So we want, delay T3 on effect 1. There we go. So if we go back, we'll see it's. And I've said it before elsewhere, but yeah, these fades are synced to the BPM, and hence the importance, another important aspect of linking up MIDI clock. So let's just get this. So the other small adjustment that was made is the contrast is a little higher. The effects that aren't on are darker, and the one that is on is brighter. So it's just better visual feedback there. Nothing terribly, functionally, this is all pretty much the same. With the exception of being able to, choose your favorites to set up. And finally, we'll jump over to the mixer. Again, nothing huge over here.
Do you think about me?
The EQ reset and filter reset. Oops. Now function, and I dealt with some latency on the faders. Some of the latency in there, some right there. Oof. So we'll address that. But otherwise, that's about it. Yeah, got a little bit of work to do on these faders, and I'm gonna try and push as many of these out before I leave for vacation this week, so you can dig into it while I'm out. If everything holds up decently, I of course, I found a couple of things to fix already. Just going through that video, that always happens. But hopefully I'll be able to work on taking it public when I get back home in early September. So I ideally like to say everyone paid no more than $10 a copy. I think anything beyond that for a lemur template is a little absurd. Spare, a select few. And so I don't want to be, I don't want to price gouge. And so I'm thinking of, if we can get like 50 people interested, setting the price, around 500 on I'm thinking Indiegogo or maybe Kickstarter. The reason I choose that price is that's about what it costs to get a new Wi-Fi iPad of the newest gen. And this is the iPad 2. I imagine they're going to be phasing it out soon. So I think that's a fair trade. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. And if we don't reach that funding goal, I mean, everyone who contributes, yeah, I'm going to continue to push out obfuscated copies, and maybe we can work something else out. I'm not going to, just keep it to myself. That's not what I want to see. But I'd really like to see it just go public and let the community tear it apart and rearrange it, however they want. So that's what I'm thinking. And anyway, thanks for bearing with me. I'm not much for giving presentations, so I've had this little note list here on my iPhone and whatnot. But yeah, I'm going to push this video out, and hopefully tomorrow I'll get a bunch of copies out to you guys. And yeah, I'm not going to be responding. I'm going to be in the Canadian Rockies. But after that, we'll catch up and see what needs to be done. So thanks for watching and putting up with me. Night, guys.